What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka Unique Mazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. I am a fight guy. I'm a Forbes contributor, and I also write for Heavy.com. And I am joined, as usual, by my fellow fight guy, fellow Forbes contributor, and Boxing Manager of the Year candidate or nominee, Peter Kahn. What's going on, Pete?
Everything's good. Looking forward to today's show, as always. How are you doing?
I am doing okay. I am alive and kicking, as my awesome uncle Donald would say, and I know he's watching the show, so that's my guy. All right, so let's go into round one. We're going to talk about Errol Spence Jr. He was just recently on the All the Smoke podcast, which is, if you haven't seen it, it's fantastic. It's hosted by Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, former NBA players. And they have a variety of different people from the sports world and sometimes the entertainment world on their show. And Errol Spence Jr. Appeared on the latest episode of the podcast. And he talked about a lot of different things. But one of the things he talked about was what would have happened if he had fought Floyd Mayweather Jr. And so he essentially said that if he had fought Floyd, he would have beat him. Just that simple, point blank. So like some people, Pete, some people consider it like sacrilegious to even mention or to say that you would have beaten somebody who is considered an all-time great. Some people feel that way, right? So if you're a heavyweight and you say, if I had fought Muhammad Ali, I'd have knocked him out.
Right.
Some people consider that to be like, I don't look at it that way. I tend to do everything like X's and O's and, and analyze it one man against another guy. I don't know. I have a take on that, but I'm actually more interested in knowing what you think.
So, his exact comment was that if they both fought in their prime, which is important.
Yes, it is important.
If they both fought in their prime, that he would have beaten Floyd Mayweather. And my initial response to that is that, and I preface this with the fact that I think Errol Spence is a great fighter, but I think he's being delusional with that comment. And the reason I think he's being delusional is I think sometimes what happens is, when someone spars somebody and they feel like they earn that person's respect, which back in 2017, when they sparred together, the takeaway from Errol Spence out of that sparring session or those sessions was that he earned Floyd's respect. He also might have felt that he performed in a way in those sparring sessions that led him to believe that in an actual fight, he would somehow have an advantage and be able to beat him. Also trying to maybe consider the fact that 2017 Floyd was also outside of his prime. And the fact that, maybe Errol thinks that just he's the bigger man, would be bigger for the weight, etc. But here's the thing. In my opinion, Errol Spence Jr. doesn't have 10% of the names on his record that Floyd has as far as who he's beaten. And here's what sticks out. He beat Kell Brook. He beat Mikey Garcia, who was fighting up 16 weight classes. I mean, really 2 weight classes. Right. Okay. This guy was a lightweight champion fighting for the welterweight championship. All right. And then he fought Sean Porter. And if Errol Spence is basically considering himself to be in his prime right now, which he should consider himself in his prime. The fight against Porter, who is not as fast as Floyd, who is not as defensive, technically sound as Floyd. Nothing against Porter, just there's only one Floyd Mayweather Jr. And also, when you look at who Floyd did beat in his prime, I'm not sure that Errol Spence would necessarily beat all of those guys. So what I think is that I think quarantine has people thinking some crazy things.
You say he quarantine crazy.
Quarantine crazy. Because I think what happens is people just start like getting a little bit, not just delusional, but,
so he's like sitting over, I could be Floyd.
Right. Right. As a matter of fact, like 3 years ago when we sparred, and like I said, and I use this example only because it is an example close to me. and I can use it because the analogy is talking about a contender against a legend.
Mm-hmm.
Even when George Kambosos Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
who's a contender,
Mm-hmm.
has sparred 250 rounds with Manny Pacquiao.
Mm-hmm.
And he gained Manny's respect. Manny kept him around and loved working with him because of his speed. But that wasn't Manny's full speed. And I think that sometimes it's like revisionist history.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Errol Spence's perception of his sparring with Floyd, and I wasn't there, okay, but I also know how sparring is, and I know that guys like Floyd Mayweather work on certain things in sparring. So 2017, he was preparing himself for Conor McGregor, right?
Yeah.
Right. Whatever the case was, and whatever was going on in that sparring, during those rounds,
Yep.
it could have been Floyd specifically working on something that he wanted to try to employ in that fight. So I'm going to leave it at this. Errol Spence Jr., excellent fighter, great world champion. Mayweather in their primes, no way.
Well, I'm going to say, I think I agree. I think that Errol is a fantastic talent. I do. I think he is ultra confident as an athlete, which is something that you need. But if there is a downfall for Errol Spence, it is exactly that. I think he has a tendency to be overconfident about certain things, and it seems to come through in different situations as far as it relates to the fight game. And I do think he could have been disillusioned by what happened in those sparring sessions. And when you mix that in with the fact that he is a world-class athlete, he is a fantastic fighter. He has not ever fought a guy who just whooped him. He's never fought anybody like that, so why would he? And we're going to talk about another person coming up later on in the show who may have that same kind of a thing going on. He's never fought anybody that has made him feel inferior that we know of. Maybe he met somebody in a sparring session that he felt got it best of him or something to that effect. But he, because of that, I understand why somebody would say, I'm the best ever, or I can beat this guy, or I can beat that guy.
Right.
But stepping outside of that and looking at it from a third party perspective of somebody who has obviously watched every single Floyd fight, has seen a great number of Spence fights. The key word, as you mentioned, is prime. First of all, I would suggest that prime Mayweather is not even in Errol Spence's weight class. That's first and foremost. Prime Mayweather is super featherweight Mayweather, in my opinion. That's the Diego Corrales, Angel Manfredi time period. That's the best Floyd, in my opinion. But even if you were to say prime welterweight Mayweather, I do not think that Errol Spence would be able to do to Floyd what he has done to the people that he's beaten. And you did bring up the Sean Porter fight, which I think is a very important fight to talk about, because obviously styles make fights and everybody interacts. Just because you beat one guy doesn't mean that you can't beat everybody, that you'll beat everybody that he beat. It just doesn't work that way. But I will say that there is something to take from the fact that beating Sean Porter was a struggle for Errol Spence. And in my mind, before the late knockdown, that fight could have gone either way. Now, I will say this. I've always thought that Sean Porter, stylistically, could give Floyd a problem because of the way he fights. Just the constant coming forward, the rough housing. I've always thought that. And I thought Floyd would beat him, but I thought it would be a very unpleasant evening, just overall. But I don't think that Errol beats Floyd in his prime. I think that Floyd beats him by a unanimous decision. It frustrates Errol, and Errol maybe does good enough to get a rematch. But I think it's going to be a frustrating fight for him, because Errol needs his opponents to do something that Floyd generally doesn't do, which is bring it to him and be there for him to hit. And Floyd's judgment of distance, his overall, his defensive instincts, his speed, all of that is something that Errol Spence has never seen anybody like that. Not even like that. So
only in sparring.
Only in sparring. And
which is a different story.
It's a completely different story. And I just don't think, I mean, hell, Greg Page knocked Mike Tyson down in sparring.
So did Oliver McCall.
Yeah. Does anybody think that Greg Page would have beat Mike Tyson in a fight? I don't think so. So I'm just saying, I don't think that you can put too much weight on that. And but I understand Errol, and I don't call Errol crazy for saying something like that, because when you are as great or as good as these guys are, you have to have a little bit of audaciousness to you. You got to be able to, you got to feel this way, because if you're only waiting for somebody else to validate your greatness, you will only be so great. So I get it, but just still on the outside looking in, I would have to disagree. So that was it. I think that was pretty interesting, though. Let's go ahead and go to our first between the rounds.
Oh, yes. My in between the rounds.
Yes.
Deontay Wilder on the PBC podcast this week had said that he's eliminating the snakes from his camp. Eliminating the snakes from his camp. I'm paraphrasing this next part, but with this time off and the ability to get deeper into the weeds, he's able to see the snakes in the grass, and he's going to get rid of them. So my whole take on this is that it's just almost like this downward spiral for Deontay. It just kind of keeps getting worse and worse and worse. It's almost like, you got to lick your wounds. You got to look inward first, see what you need to change, answer those tough questions, or sometimes just give a guy credit and just say, you know what? The better man won that night. And it wasn't because of Mike Camp. It wasn't because of JD's or Mark Breland or Shelly Finkel or whomever he's referring to, because those three people are three of the top people in his camp. His manager, co-manager, Shelly Finkel, was he talking about Al Heyman? I doubt it. Right? So Al Heyman and Shelly Finkel, co-managers. Mark Breland threw in the towel, rightfully so. I thought he protected Deontay and allowed him to be healthy and go home to his family and fight another day. So you take the L, big deal. You come back. JD's, well, didn't seem to have a problem with him for the first 40-something fights. So my whole question, what other snakes could be in his camp? Because it almost sounds like he's saying that those snakes cost me this fight. It's almost like there's someone to blame. Now, I don't know what it means. I think maybe we'll find out as he prepares for that third fight. But I just found the whole timing and the continual, and I'm a Deontay fan. Listen, I picked him to win the first fight. I picked him to win the second fight. And I still think he'll knock out Anthony Joshua. I just think Fury has his number. And sometimes I just don't think, but look, I'm not in his camp. I don't know. But from the outside looking in, it just seems like he needs to move on. So that's my in between the rounds.
Yeah, and I am definitely interested and looking forward to rebutting that, later on in the championship rounds. Let's move on to round two. We're going to have an opportunity to speak to one of the more exciting prospects coming up in the world of boxing in the 154-pound division. All right, it is my pleasure to welcome in Vasyl Lomachenko. He is 17-0, 13 knockouts, goes by the name of Black Magic. Actually just won the NABF Super Welterweight title with a first-round KO over Fernando Castaneda. How you doing today, Vasyl?
Oh, man, I'm doing well, man. Just here chilling with my dog. Went to go do for a little run earlier. And now I'm just here chilling.
Yeah.
Enjoying my day.
What's the dog's name?
My dog's name, Magic Jr.
All right. All right.
This is my little buddy right here, man.
Oh, man.
Oh, look at him.
Look at him.
Buddy. I just woke him up. He's pretty mad, but yeah.
So we were just talking about your recent win, or the most recent win. that NABF title should see you break in the top 15, I guess, in the WBC, right? That would be the conventional wisdom.
Yes. I think now my ranking in the US is 16.
Right.
Right at the edge.
So let me ask you something. So in November, when Patrick Teixeira beat Carlos Adames to win that WBO title, being that he's with Golden Boy, were you like licking your chops saying, get me in that top 15 so I could challenge for that title?
Yeah, matter of fact, it's the crazy thing about that because Patrick, I was supposed to fight him a while back. They offered me to fight him, but he turned me down.
Hey, for good reason though, right?
Yeah, that is a good reason though. So people is really moving him well.
Yeah, I mean,
he can't run now because you got a title.
Right, exactly. And you're knocking on the door to get in that, top 15 of all those world rankings.
Oh yeah, most definitely trying to get to that point.
Yeah, I know that the talk was that going in that direction when you beat Diego Cruz back in November 2019, because I think that was considered like a step up fight for you.
Yeah.
And you handled that fight. It was one of the first fights going like 10 rounds or so. And you handled that one pretty well. Pretty much dominated the fight. It set up the NABF title bout. So in the next time you fight, is there certain guys that you have on your radar that already have a number next to their name, or how is that working?
I'm really not too sure. I know before all of this even started, they said that we were supposed to be fighting in May. They told me to get ready for May, and they gave me a name of Gary O'Sullivan.
Oh, okay.
I guess they wanted me to fight him in May. I guess close on the Canelo card that was going to happen.
Yeah,
I'm not too sure, but that's the name they gave me. So I've just been. That's what's in my radar right now. Other than looking to fight other people at this point, I'm not really looking forward to just go out there and call anybody out. It's just, hey, I'm trying to just move up the rankings just like everyone else. Everybody's trying to do the same thing. So I just want to move the rankings up natural. Whoever I fight, and to get in that way, I'm fighting them. No matter, I'm not scared of anybody.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good fight actually, because for you, that's just another step up fight. It's just another good fight in the progression of you moving ahead. I mean, you have enough ring experience now where you can start zeroing in over the next 3 fights or so to put yourself in serious contention.
Big time. And man, I've been doing it for 18 years. I mean, the sport I feel like I got boxing down pat for like good, and I'm still just learning. I'm not saying that I have it down pat. I just know for a fact that now I feel like I need to step up my opponents. So just to show the world I got that skill set.
It's also a really good look for you to fight Scary Spike O'Sullivan. And a lot of people probably know him more as Spike O'Sullivan because he just came off fighting Jaime Munguia. Yeah. And Jaime Munguia took care of him, won that fight. So it's almost like you're being progressed along the same line, which is really good. And it shows a lot of confidence that Golden Boy has maybe in you, because they're putting you on a track with someone who we all know they hold in high regard in regards to Jaime Munguia. So is that a fight? I know you're not like a call a guy out, but from you guys, your frames, it seems as though even if Jaime Munguia moves up to 160 or whatever, you're 6'2". Is that a fight that you can see maybe happening in the future?
Oh, I can see me and Munguia fighting. I can definitely see that. I don't know. Probably I don't know at 160 though. I mean, we can probably do 54. I might move up to 160 probably later on in my career, but I feel very confident and protected at 54. But I do see that fight. Like I said, I called them out a few times in my fights. I really want the fight. But if he moved up in weight, I mean that's good for him. I'm gonna keep mine at 54. My range is in the 54 area. I want to stick dead to that weight class for a very while.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I noticed, in the ring, man, because your frame is one of the things that make you toughest to handle. Arms are really long. I don't even know what the reach is, but just from the eye test, you can tell you can touch guys normally before they can touch you.
Yes.
because of the length of the arms. You look like man, and I know it's great that you can make 154. It just looks like you look so much bigger in the ring. I'm wondering, like, by the time you fight, like, generally, do you ever step on the scale? Like, how much do you usually weigh? Because you look like, sometimes I look at Jared Hurd in the ring and I'm like, Jesus, he 154. And I'm looking at you and I'm like, whoa, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Like right before the fight, I usually weigh in at 54, 53. Then I get back on the scale the next day, 65, probably 66.
Yeah.
I know not the last fight, but when I fought Diego Cruz, shoot, dude, I went back up like, let me see, I think 170, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
70. So this last fight here, I kind of pushed it down a little bit. I kind of went in like 65. But yeah, I do get a lot of people. I do get that a lot. That I do look a lot bigger around fight time.
Yeah, it's a genetic thing, and it's obviously an advantage and a gift for you, because if you're making the 154 without a huge strain, I mean, that's all the better for you,
Yeah, it's so easy. It's so easy to make 54. It's very easy. It's comfortable. I'm not drained. I'm not tired. I'm just very comfortable that way.
Yeah.
Now you're from Austin, Texas. Where are you living in Austin, Texas now?
Not right now. I currently is in Little Rock, Arkansas now with Ozell Nelson. That's why I'm back there, secluding myself from the friends, family, and just focus a lot on boxing.
So look, the 54 division is pretty exciting. We've seen titles change hands a lot this past year. With Jason Rosario defeating Julian Williams. Now we have Teixeira beating Adames. I mean, the landscape looks a little different. There's a lot of good fighters. Who stylistically, out of all these current champions, if you had your choice, who would you like to fight?
First, I would go for Patrick. I would definitely go for Patrick first. I just know I have that. I just know for a fact, me just seeing him fight, that I can outbox him very easily. Even though he's tall and he's a southpaw
and tough.
And yeah, he's very tough.
A lot of grit.
I believe I can take him on. And then we can move on to who beat J-Rock. What was his name again?
Jason Rosario, Banana.
Yeah.
I would go for him as well. I mean, all these guys that has these titles. Hey, I'll go through them one by one.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation there at 154. I think it's suddenly kind of snuck up on people and become a very interesting division. And honestly, Jason Rosario's what many people would consider an upset victory over J-Rock is actually kind of added some spice to 154. So it makes me wonder if Jaime Munguia would still be as ready to jump up to 160, because now it's starting to seem like it might be a little bit more excitement at 154, especially since Canelo is probably not fighting at 160 anymore. So how do you feel about the overall landscape of your division? I know you're comfortable making it, but how do you feel about the landscape?
The landscape of it, I'm pretty confident in myself about the whole landscape. I'm very big fans of Charlo, J-Rock, Jared Hurd. I was watching them fight as well, and even the Charlo brothers was ringside at Golden Boy's fight, watching me. Sometimes I'm very good fans, but at the same time, if it comes down to the come down, when it's that time to fight and they get our names on a contract, hey, it's business.
Hey, there are no friends in the ring.
It's not. You go down to business. Afterwards, I respect you, and we move on from there.
Yeah. Are you you're still with Fly's Day, right?
Yeah, Cleveland.
Yes.
That's my
yes, because he and I used to correspond a bit a few years ago, and I'm gonna tell you, he was telling me about you like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I didn't necessarily have a platform at the time to do, everything I may have wanted to do. So it's definitely a pleasure to get an opportunity to talk to you today. I'm actually probably going to reach out to him and just kind of touch base with him again. But yeah, I'm noticing that he's doing really well, especially in the Golden Boy staple.
Oh yeah, he really is. I mean, he keeps them in touch with them all the time. They love him. He's strict to the point. He's always in business and business attire. He's always good when it definitely comes to the business. He's always good. Always.
Yeah.
So for fans, people that are just starting to get to know you, because you're starting to get on everybody's radar as a contender. I think you're past the prospect phase, and you're a legitimate contender now with the NABF title. What do they need to know about you? What is something people need to know about Black Magic?
I'm a boxing fanatic, man. I'm a person that I'm gonna always think about the sweet science: to hit, to not get hit. I'm always gonna use that in my head. And every time you get in the ring with me, just know, be prepared to have a boxing lesson.
I can dig it. I can definitely dig it. I love it, man. And I think students of the game are always just good for the sport. It's just always good for the sport, especially when it's a person that's coming up in the game. So I appreciate your time today, Tre'vell. It was a pleasure. And I know that we'll be hearing more from you in the future. And hopefully we get an opportunity to talk to you then.
Oh, most definitely, man. Like I said, thank you so much for even giving me the time to do an interview with you guys. I really appreciate that, man. I'm glad I'm on you guys' radar, and I hope we get to have another interview soon.
So where can fans find you on social?
My social media is I'm on Facebook, Tre'vell Mazique. You can just look up my name. On Instagram, my Instagram is black_magic92. Again, that's black_magic92, and that's the same thing for my Twitter. And if you guys want to just see me personally, like on my Snapchat is T, and then my last name Mazique92. Again, that's T Mazique, my last name 92. That's
all right. All right. Thanks a lot, man. Have a good one, bro.
Thanks for joining us. All right, stay safe.
All right.
All right. So let's go into our between the rounds. And this one is we got a lot of predictions coming from big names right now. And this one is actually not from an active fighter. It comes from Bernard Hopkins. And he basically put his prediction out for what everybody knows is coming, which is a third fight between Canelo Alvarez and Golovkin. And I'm noticing the level of disrespect that is coming down, pretty much aimed at Golovkin is really kind of shocking. Now, I'm not dying on the Golovkin heel or anything like that, but I am a bit taken aback by this seemingly string of disrespect for him. So we have former trainer Abel Sanchez saying that he's worried about his well-being for a third fight. We've got people from Golden Boy's camp. Obviously, they're going to say this, but Bernard Hopkins is saying that he sees that Canelo's going to knock Golovkin out in the third fight. He just, no doubt, no question in his mind, he's going to knock him out. And I understand. So don't get me wrong. I'm not putting too much stock into Golden Boy predicting their guy to win and their guy to win definitively. That's just what promotional teams and that sort of thing, that's what they do. To a degree, that's what they're supposed to do, right? But when you group it in with all of the other chatter that's coming in that seems to be anti-Golovkin, and anybody that knows has followed my writing and my coverage of Golovkin, everybody knows I was the last person to give Golovkin like the stamp of approval that everybody else was getting. I can even remember talking to Bernie Barmacel before, and him telling me, "Hey, you just don't want to give Golovkin any credit." And I'm like, I remember this like from years before. It was right before the Jacobs fight. He was like, "So you just don't think he's a good fighter?" I was like, "No, I didn't say that. I just said he hasn't really beaten anybody yet." So I'm not like this hardcore Golovkin fan that's fighting for his respect, but I am saying How are so many people convinced that a guy that we've never even seen been buzzed is going to get knocked out by a guy he's already fought twice and who has never really ever hurt him? How are we that sure about this? Now, somebody said, oh, he's going to beat him. I get it. I totally get that. But he's going to knock him out? And you're sure? You're concerned for his well-being? You're sure? More than another fight? What is it that's happening with this thing, this third fight, that has everybody so like this? So I can't wait to hear what you got to say in the championship rounds about that. But that's just kind of, that's a head scratcher for me. So we'll see what happens. But let's go ahead and jump into round 3, which is all about asking the fight guys. So we're still waiting on you guys to use the hashtag properly. I know it takes a little bit of time before people grasp that whole concept, but hashtag ask the fight guys. Come at us with your questions. Just let us know what is on your mind, whatever questions you may have about things that we've covered, things even that we haven't covered that you want to know our opinions. That's what this whole section is for. And one of the things one of the questions that came out this month or this week was from your name, man. Your name almost made me not put you on the screen. I am not gonna lie, but his name is Dana White Trash, and he had a comment about our Jamal Charlo segment where we're talking about will Jamal Charlo be more popular at super middleweight, right? And Dana says, I don't know whether this, you use either somebody's first name or their last name. So I don't see. I'm going with Dana. He says he will be more popular if he fights someone worth a damn. Benavidez would give him a beat down. The fight will never happen. What's your say on that, Pete?
Well, I think the fight will happen. Jamal's asking for the fight. They have the same promotional umbrella. Mm-hmm. So there's really no impediment to that fight happening. And this is a way for Charlo to step up to another weight division, win, hopefully, in his eyes, a world title in a third weight class, further putting him closer to a mega fight with Canelo. And I think that Mr. Trash is not really seeing this big picture.
Mr. Trash.
But you know what I mean? Like, sometimes people, they're so visceral in their response. And Benavidez is going to do that. Well, maybe he will. Maybe Benavidez will win. Who knows? Anybody can win a fight on any given day. Mm-hmm. This is boxing. But that's really has nothing to do with Charlo. Charlo wants the fight because he's not getting a mega fight at 60. He sees these big names now gravitating to 68. In addition to the existing fighters that are there, he's already a big guy to begin with. He's a guy that was squeezing into 54. He fits perfectly at 60, but he could easily maybe even be stronger if there's even such a thing at 68. And the other thing that I haven't mentioned, which now just kind of popped in my head, was sometimes you got to understand that fighters don't even really know how the public perceives a certain fight. Mm-hmm. So at the press conference to kick off Charlo Hogan, I had an opportunity to speak with Jamal when he wasn't yelling at us. Okay. When the cameras were off and we were standing to the side, I talked to him and I said, yeah, man, I think that you and Canelo is a mega fight. That's a pay-per-view. And he looked at me, he's like, really? You think so? So even he doubted if that's even a mega fight because he's not getting the fights that would define him as having those legacy type fights. Mm-hmm. So I think he's figuring that maybe at 68, he can be put in a situation where it would be just undeniable becoming a 3-weight class champion, beating a guy like Benavidez. It's like walking out in the yard and picking maybe the toughest, biggest guy and going after him. Maybe that's how he sees it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not him. I don't know. But what I know is that he's the one that wants that fight. So I would assume, knowing his confidence, that he does want that fight.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is, and I think what you said, that little snippet of the conversation that you had with him was very, very important and very important for people to understand, because what you see when the cameras are on after a fight or during fight promotion is not necessarily indicative of how that fighter really feels or thinks. He or she is flipping a switch, especially if they feel the responsibility of promoting themselves in some sort of way and being and creating a persona, which you can tell the Charlos feel that they need to do, and with good reason, in my opinion. So it may come to some people as a shock to hear Peter say that he questioned, like, really, you think that's really a, some people would think that, this is this arrogant guy and he's overconfident and he's got this really delusional concept about his own worth. And I think that response right there just showed you that's not the case. He wasn't even sure if a fight between him and one of the biggest stars in the sport is a pay-per-view fight. And it absolutely is a pay-per-view fight.
I looked at him like, okay.
Yeah.
I said, it absolutely is. That's a mega fight.
It absolutely is a mega fight. I'm like, if Canelo Charlo is happening, if I'm not covering that fight, I'm probably throwing a fight party.
Right.
And anybody knows you don't throw fight parties for just any fight.
Look, whatever your opinions are, whether or wins or doesn't win or whatever, that has nothing to do with what Brian and I are talking about.
No.
So fight that there's so many question marks and it would answer so many questions. Mm-hmm. And just the idea of wanting to see that play out is worthy enough of the conversation, and ultimately hoping that we can see something like that.
Yes, for sure. For sure. I mean, I hope that we get an opportunity to see something like that, but I don't think it's delusional. And I also don't think the fact that he hasn't fought great competition is on him. I think that he's been there for fights to happen, but he just hasn't, he's a 160-pound champion under the PBC, under the Al Heyman label, and there just isn't anybody there of any real status for him to fight. Every really relevant 160-pound fighter is fighting for another promotion, another network. So who is it that he's supposed to have been fighting under Showtime or PBC that he hasn't fought that you'd say, he must be avoiding that guy? Nobody. So I don't think that we can really rail against him for his competition. You got to rail against the sport itself, because the competition for him to fight, those fights aren't as easy to make. So it just kind of is what it is.
And one last thing, mm-hmm. Promoters don't like to lose their grip mm-hmm. on a television date. Mm-hmm. And when you lose champions and you lose leverage, it interferes with your ability to put on a show. Mm-hmm. You no longer have a champion in a weight class. You're struggling to find main event fights. Mm-hmm. And so that goes for every promoter, Top Rank, Matchroom, Golden Boy, PBC, DeBella, whoever. Mm-hmm. And so there's also this probably cautious scenario too, because you also want to control that promotion. Mm-hmm. Because you know that, you don't want to build somebody up and build the brand and then all of a sudden say, okay, we'll go fight on the other network and we'll get paid instead of being the one doing the paying. Mm-hmm. So I think that, what happens is, I think at 68, they know that they're going to have to play ball with other promoters if they wanted to fight the likes of Canelo or Danny Jacobs or Andrade or Saunders. But there is a guy, or Smith, but there is a guy under the PBC umbrella at 68, and that's Benavidez. Mm-hmm. And that's the path of least resistance, and that's why he's calling him out.
Yeah. And I believe it's a fight he can win. Because that was one of Mr. Trash's comments, is that Benavidez would smash Charlo, and I really don't. Well, I'm not saying Benavidez won't win the fight or can't win the fight. Right. We had Benavidez on this show, and I like David Benavidez quite a bit. But I think stylistically, Charlo has the size, he has the speed, and I think that his power is real.
He also has and he's a great trainer.
Yeah, yes.
Ronnie Shields able to make adjustments.
Yes, yes, and I feel it's not a fight he can't win, man. It's not a fight he can't win at all. It's a good fight. And so and I think this is what Peter's saying. People are so visceral in their comments in the comment section. You have the freedom to speak in these absolutes, and to make a 7-6 victory on the gridiron sound like somebody beat somebody 42-3. And a lot of times that's the way you guys are talking is not indicative of the way these competitions are going to play out. You saying he's going to smash Charlo? Probably not.
Right. Might beat him.
You might beat him,
but he's not smashing him.
Not going to smash him. You're talking like Charlo is just like a no talent bum. And if you step from behind your fandom superhero costume and look at it as a sport and boxing, and you give that man, whether you like him or not, the respect that he deserves as a fighter who has dedicated years upon years to his craft and who has already beaten other world-class athletes, if you stop looking at it that way and look at it as that, you will stop using the word smash as much as you do. Just saying. All right, let's go to our next comment on Ask the Fight Guys. And this one comes from ThinkCap. He is a regular watching the live show, so we definitely appreciate him, as well as watching the breakouts. And he responded to the Build Your Perfect Boxer, kind of little exercise that Peter and I did. And he didn't go through all of the different categories that we had, which is fine because it was a little bit of a whirlwind. But ThinkCap does say that from a right hand standpoint, he thinks that Golovkin's right hand would be there. Hand speed, he liked the Amir Khan mention. Footwork, he said Manny, which I think is interesting. I do think that's interesting. And chin, he said Golovkin, which further makes me wonder why everybody is worried about Golovkin getting knocked out. But that's just a whole nother Oprah show.
Right.
But I don't think that anything that ThinkCap said was ridiculous.
No.
Manny does have great footwork.
Yeah.
And the footwork that it's like unorthodox. The leaping and the dashing in and out. Most people don't fight that way. Right. But it has obviously worked for him. But so I don't think that any of that is crazy, especially not Golovkin in the chin, because
and the right hand.
That was the craziest to me though, because does Golovkin have a big punch? Huge, yes, but I have not seen Golovkin deplete guys with a right hand the way I've seen some people. Like we didn't mention him, but we should have, in some level of that has something to do with punching, is Julian Jackson.
Absolutely.
Oh my mercy. Yes. I'm talking about, you want to see some of the scariest one-punch KOs in the history of the sport?
Yeah. The Hawk.
Man. So you want to compare Julian Jackson's right hand to Golovkin's right hand? Golovkin can crack, but I have not seen guys fold up like lawn chairs after Golovkin hit them with a right hand like I saw them with Julian Jackson.
They react, but they're not out before they hit the canvas.
Yes. Curtis Stevens' reaction after Golovkin knockout was pretty. Yeah. It was like he laid on the ground. He was like,
right.
That's pretty, but Julian Jackson was doing that like 5-6 fights in a row. So yeah, I don't know. But it's not insane. It's not like he said Paulie Malignaggi's right hand or something, that
even Paulie wouldn't give his right hand any credit.
No, he wouldn't. Paulie, no. And that's what I love so much about Paulie, and that's why I think Paulie's the best at what he does.
Oh, which reminds me, we have to add a new category: the best mouth.
Well, that's
no. There's a lot of good ones.
That's Ali though.
Yeah, but I know, but there's a lot of good.
Yeah. But Paulie's really good. Paulie's really good. Paulie's mouthpiece. I mean, you got to. You know what? I've said this before.
He's still talking. Talking.
I said this before. Paulie Malignaggi is the American dream. I don't know any other I don't know if I know any other athlete, but I certainly don't know any other boxer who has made more with less. Like,
I think you're underestimating him, though.
no,
you're not giving him enough credit. You're not giving him enough credit.
I'm talking about, what about Paulie from an athletic standpoint is above and beyond most other fighters that
Okay. Well, in the chin department, I would put Paulie in there.
Yeah.
It's relative. It's all relative to.
He's just so tough. Just so tough. But see that
But he was a very good boxer.
He was a very good boxer, but what I'm talking about is when I say working with less, like some guys show up to the gym with an overwhelming athletic gift that you build the skills around, right? You're either super fast, you have these insane quick twitch athleticism or instincts and reflexes, or you got this big power. Paulie doesn't show up to the gym with that from the beginning.
No, but he was slippery. He was hard to hit. He was a very good defensive fighter, and he had a very good chin. And he was smart
the chin
and conditioning. He just didn't have a big punch.
I don't know. When I look at Paulie, and all of this that I'm saying is a 100% a compliment to Paulie.
Right.
I'm talking about
backhanded compliment, but still go.
It's not at all. It's not at all. It's completely 100% forward. I'm just being forward about
right.
Paulie from an athletic standpoint does not stand out, but yet be above and beyond all of that. Hard work, intelligence, just dedication to the game, toughness, all of those things that we would traditionally dismiss as, or we would categorize as intangibles. He's like scoring off the charts in those areas to compensate for the raw athleticism things that he may not have. And to me, that's nothing but a compliment.
That's another good segment, by the way. Mm-hmm. Who's done the most with less?
Right. And I'm telling you, I can't think of anybody, who's done more with less. I mean, even if you look at somebody like Ruslan Provodnikov, right, who I've mentioned before, he's got a huge punch. He's freakishly strong, so he's bringing the great equalizer to the table from the beginning.
Right.
Paulie has to be perfect for longer than everybody, and yet he's done that to win multiple world championships. That's crazy.
So as a side note, Brian, after we did this build your fighter,
right?
Like an hour later, I sat back and I was like, oh my God. I was like, how did I not include Hector Camacho in some category? Yeah.
Man,
you know what I mean?
No, I thought about it while you were talking, when you were mentioning some people. I started to say Camacho, but then I just, but Camacho's hand speed was stupid.
But ThinkCap, we love seeing you in the comments during the show here. And I think this is good. I like when guys chime in. I mean, I would love to see other people start building their fighters with all these different criteria.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it. Maybe we need to have one of your million geniuses that you have access to build your perfect fighter app.
Okay.
Okay. I love that response. Okay. You do that a lot. Just
okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. It's like the two most powerful words in the English language. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and jump to.
Did you just say the most powerful words or letters?
Whatever.
Okay.
Two most powerful letters.
Okay.
You know what, Peter? I might need our editor to censor this. Okay. Let's go into the championship round.
Yes, let's do it.
I got let's see. We're gonna talk about Deontay Wilder.
Yes. Well, you are. I talked about him. You're gonna go in.
The thing. I wish that I could say a bunch of different stuff than what you said. Deontay, he's just not handling this well.
Yeah.
If you just want to simplify it, right? He's just not handling this L well. And on one hand, I understand. I've said before, when you win so often and you win in dominant fashion, the way he has throughout his career, losing is with every win, losing becomes more foreign and becomes harder to comprehend and harder to accept. He was not at a point. I've seen some guys lose and they've won for so long, and they're at the end of their careers, and it's almost like the loss is a relief because they've been carrying this weight of continuing this dominance. Well, Deontay was not at that point.
Right.
He was not at that point mentally where he was looking for relief. And I understand that too, because he really hadn't gotten or hadn't received the level of praise and the level of adulation that he should be receiving for him to have the level of success that he'd already had. So I get that. But one thing that I think is I'm in total agreement with you on, Peter, is his reluctance to take any public responsibility. Now, I don't know what he's telling people, in private conversations. I don't know what conversations he's having with trainers or with Al Heyman, anybody. But publicly, everything he says has something to do with what somebody else did or didn't do as a means to explain how he lost. I mean, he even blamed an inanimate object as part of how he lost. It was my suit. So it's going from Mark Breland's fault to his suit to some unnamed snake that he can finally see now that he got a lawnmower to cut I'm getting a new lawnmower on Friday, so that's on my mind. So it's all this different stuff, but none of it is Deontay could have done this better, or I should have been more prepared, or I should know how to fight moving backwards better, or I should have been ready or prepared for him to come in heavier. He was physically stronger than me, and that's something that I got to change for this next fight. I need to understand how to make an adjustment. He made an adjustment. Now it's time for me to make one. Right. None of that.
Right.
None of that.
Gonna work on my fundamentals.
None of that. It's all about Mark Breland shouldn't have stopped the fight. He should have let me die in the ring because I want a body. It might as well be my own. All this crap. All this crap.
Right.
But nothing about what he could have done better. And that's the part of it that pushes me that rubs me the wrong way about just the way he's handling this. But like I said, I understand. You've never lost before. You've never lost before. You've always been able to hold right trigger and hit X and summon your power punch and call upon that superpower. But this particular time, your special attack didn't work, and you were unable to finish the boss. And it just is what it is. And I think if he was able to say that, I think that it would, in my opinion, increase the level of respect that people would have for him.
Right.
But it just isn't that way right now. So we'll see what happens. But honestly, I really think it adds even more pressure on him for the third fight. Because when you go into a third fight and you've said all of this stuff that he said, suits and snakes in the grass and people stopping fights and all this other kind of stuff. Now everybody's, because here's a news flash. Nobody's buying into it, Deontay. Right. Nobody's.
Right. That's the problem. The problem is, who are these snakes? It's been a series of excuses.
Yeah, nobody, and who anywhere besides the people who are just hardcore Deontay fans who just will not say anything negative or anything critical at all. Besides those people, you got me doing the Roy Jones Shoulder thing. Beyond those people, who's buying into these excuses? Right. Nobody is. Nobody's doing it. So
it's a bad look.
It's a bad look, and you just keep making it worse.
Yeah.
Stop. Just stop. So that's my take on that particular one. So we can jump into the second championship rounds, and we talked about B-Hop and Canelo. So what is your take on that?
I mean, my take is, number one, I don't know why B-Hop, I don't know why Bernard feels the need that this fight needs some extra selling. Like somehow the extra selling of a third Golovkin fight by Bernard Hopkins coming out and saying that he's going to knock him out, and
QC.
I mean,
Quarantine crazy.
Here's the thing. Who knows? I mean, this is boxing. Knockouts happen. Anything can happen. Fighters get old overnight. Maybe that's in his mind, right? But it just seems like now what's happening is we're getting a lot of sound bites, a lot of headlines, simply to keep a conversation going. I don't think that this third fight needs any extra ammunition to keep this fight going.
Right.
I think it's interesting enough to just really. I think the first two fights had so many question marks still, because the first fight was a draw. I thought Triple G won. A lot of people thought Triple G won. The second fight was very close. I think in the end, you could make an argument either way, but you can easily make an argument that Canelo came out, made the adjustments from the first fight, kind of surprised Golovkin a little bit, and won the fight. So I didn't see anything overwhelming by Canelo in the first two that would lead me to believe that he's going to come out here and now and all of a sudden beat Golovkin by knockout. The other thing is this: even with Golovkin's poor performance, and I shouldn't even say that because it's discrediting Derevyanchenko, and I don't want to do that. Okay,
yeah, and I kind of thought that the first time you said that, but I didn't mention it. But yeah, I don't think it was that as much as he fought well.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that because at the end of the day, Derevyanchenko lost a split decision to Danny Jacobs. And he overcame a cut within the first two rounds and a knockdown, arguably maybe even win the fight against Triple G. But like you said, I've never seen Triple G buzzed. I've never seen him staggered. Never seen him put in a position to where I thought, well, maybe he's going to go this round, or maybe he's going to go the following round, or maybe he's going to run out of gas. Even though he has that weird breathing style that sometimes make it looks like he's gasping for air. You know, I think that those comments of the knockout. First of all, here's another thing. So we did see 175-pound Canelo stop Sergey Kovalev. I don't know what Sergey Kovalev was there that night.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay. The other thing is this: they're not fighting at that weight class. Okay. So I don't think Golovkin even accepts 68. Would he accept 5? Maybe. Maybe he accepts 65. Maybe in order for this fight to happen, they told him, look, it's going to have to happen at a catch weight, and it's going to be at 65. I don't know. This is just me purely guessing. I don't think Canelo possesses the power at that weight to stop Triple G. Now, that's just my opinion. And it wasn't so much, do I think it can happen or not happen? Anything can happen in boxing. I'm just wondering why Bernard Hopkins feels the need to come out and make such a bold statement. Maybe to get the response that he's getting from us, so we talk about it. So that we get the interest going, so that we get talking about it. So it's like, hey, you know what? Go say something quarantine crazy to get people talking about this fight, because we need to keep that fire burning until we're actually able to make that fight.
Right.
So maybe we're playing into, maybe Bernard's sitting back saying, exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of what you were talking about when you were talking about Charlo. You know, a lot of times fighters or someone doesn't know what really truly is, what the level of hype required is for a fight. And so social media is like this great barometer now. You mentioned this on a segment a few weeks back. Sometimes you throw something out there to see what the response is.
Yeah, and we took the bait. We're taking the bait today.
How much buzz is created. And if Bernard can get enough people talking about that, then maybe it moves the needle a little bit more. Maybe just off of general principle, the third fight is a 1.1 million pay-per-view buy event. Just off with no, extra super dramatic, sort of things being said or done in the pre-fight. But maybe if he can push the initiative of Canelo's going to knock him out. Now that raises the intrigue to 1.25 million homes just because of that. Is 250,000 more pay-per-view buys worth it? Probably is. So,
look, the talk is free.
The talk is free. And so it's all profit because he's not going to hurt it. saying that stuff is certainly not hurting nobody's saying, what Bernard said he's going to knock him out. I don't think
I'm not watching.
I'm not going to buy it, so it's.
Well, theoretically, you shouldn't have to buy it if it's on the Zone.
Yeah, it's on the Zone, so I'm not going to subscribe. So I was thinking about subscribing to the Zone, but after Bernard said that,
right.
So it's not going to happen. So, I just, I to a degree, it's like this. Some of this quarantine talk is irritating because it's so implausible, and that it's just nothing but rhetoric. But some of it is entertaining and some of it is cool, and it keeps the fire going because there is nothing going on right now. And because we do know that Triple G Canelo 3 is gonna happen.
Right.
This one doesn't fall into the category of rhetoric. It's just another thing for a fight that we know is coming.
Right.
But when we got people fighting at flyweight for PBC, calling out a middleweight for who's signed with Matchroom, I'm like,
right?
Why do I care?
Quarantine crazy.
So that's it, man. That is what we got for today's show. I do appreciate everybody watching. It has been a weird week in terms of just being under the weather and all types of sinus issues and stuff. So I had to persevere through. Peter's doing fine. Look at his hair.
I'm doing great, baby.
He sucks. But at any rate, appreciate you watching as always. God bless.